It was supposed to be a fun camping trip for Jake, Mia, Leo, and Zoe. They had planned to spend the weekend in the woods, away from their parents and the stress of school. They had packed their tents, sleeping bags, flashlights, and snacks. They had also brought a Ouija board, hoping to contact some spirits and have a spooky adventure. But things went wrong from the start. They got lost on their way to the campsite and ended up in a clearing that looked nothing like the map. The trees were twisted and gnarled, the grass was dry and brittle, and the air was thick with mist. They decided to set up their tents anyway, hoping to find their way back in the morning. That night, they gathered around a fire and took out the Ouija board. They placed their fingers on the planchette and asked if there was anyone there. To their surprise, the planchette moved quickly to yes. They asked who it was, and the planchette spelled out a name, Ray. "Who's Ray?" Jake asked. "I don't know," Mia said. "Maybe he's a ghost who haunts this place." They asked Ray more questions, but he only gave vague and cryptic answers. He said he was lonely and wanted to play with them. He said he knew a secret about the woods. He said he could show them something amazing if they followed him. They were curious and scared at the same time. They asked Ray where he was and how they could follow him. He said he was in the mist and that they had to close their eyes and walk towards him. He said they had to trust him. They hesitated, but then decided to give it a try. They closed their eyes and stood up from the fire. They felt a cold breeze on their faces and heard a faint whisper in their ears, "Come with me." They walked blindly into the mist, holding hands and hoping for the best. They didn't know how long they walked or how far they went. They only knew that they felt a strange sensation of floating and falling at the same time. Then they opened their eyes. They gasped in shock and horror. They were no longer in the woods. They were in a dark and twisted version of their own town. The buildings were crumbling and covered in graffiti. The streets were littered with trash and broken glass. The people were pale and hollow-eyed, wandering aimlessly or lying on the ground. They looked at each other in disbelief. What had happened? Where were they? How could they get back? They heard a laugh behind them. They turned around and saw Ray. He was not a ghost. He was a boy, about their age, but with a wicked grin and a gleam in his eyes. "Welcome to my world," he said. "I hope you like it here." He laughed again and ran away, disappearing into the shadows. They realized too late that they had been tricked. Ray was not a lonely spirit who wanted to play with them. He was a malicious being who wanted to trap them in his nightmare realm. They had followed him into a portal that connected two dimensions, theirs and his. And now they were stuck. The House of Mirrors. It was supposed to be a fun night out for Jake and his friends. They had heard about the new carnival that had set up in the outskirts of town, and they were curious to check it out. They had seen the posters advertising the thrilling rides, the freaky shows, and the mysterious attractions. But none of them had caught their attention more than the House of Mirrors. The House of Mirrors was a huge tent that promised to show them their true selves. Jake was intrigued by the idea. He had always wondered what he really looked like, beyond his ordinary appearance. He had a feeling that there was something more to him, something hidden and special. He wanted to see it for himself. He convinced his friends to join him. They were a bit reluctant at first, but they agreed to humor him. They paid the entrance fee and walked into the tent. Inside, they were greeted by a maze of mirrors that reflected their images in various ways. Some mirrors made them look taller or shorter, fatter or thinner, older or younger. Some mirrors distorted their features into grotesque shapes, while others enhanced their beauty. Jake and his friends laughed and joked as they explored the maze, trying to find their way out. But as they went deeper into the tent, they noticed that the mirrors became more strange and unsettling. Some mirrors showed them scenes from their past or future, things they had done or would do. Some mirrors showed them their fears or desires, things they dreaded or longed for. Some mirrors showed them their secrets or lies, things they hid or denied. Jake and his friends felt uneasy and uncomfortable as they saw these reflections. They wanted to leave, but they couldn't find the exit. They started to panic and run, but they only got more lost. They realized that the maze was changing around them, trapping them in a labyrinth of illusions. They tried to call for help, but no one answered. They tried to break the mirrors, but they were too strong. They tried to stick together, but they got separated. Jake found himself alone in a dark corridor, surrounded by mirrors that showed him nothing but blackness. He felt a cold sweat on his forehead and a tightness in his chest. He wondered if he would ever get out of this nightmare. He stumbled upon a door at the end of the corridor. He hoped it was the way out. He pushed it open and stepped inside. He gasped as he saw what was waiting for him. It was a room full of mirrors that showed him his true self. But it was not what he expected. It was not what he wanted. It was not what he could handle. It was a horror beyond his imagination. It was a revelation that shattered his sanity. It was a twist that he never saw coming. He screamed as he realized that he was not human. He was a monster. They thought it was just a game. A harmless way to spend a boring night at the old mansion. But they were wrong. So very wrong. It started with a Ouija board. A dusty relic they found in the attic, along with a faded book of spells. They decided to try it out, just for fun. They asked silly questions, like who had a crush on whom, or what their futures would hold. They laughed at the answers, thinking it was one of them moving the planchette. But then the questions got darker. And the answers got scarier. And the planchette started moving on its own. They heard a voice. A raspy, whispery voice that seemed to come from everywhere and nowhere. It said it was the spirit of the mansion's owner, a notorious sorcerer who had died in a mysterious fire decades ago. It said it wanted to play with them. It said it would grant them their deepest wishes if they agreed to its terms. They were curious. And greedy. And foolish. They agreed. The voice told them to go to the basement, where they would find a door that led to another world. A world of wonders and horrors, where anything was possible. A world where they could live out their fantasies, or face their nightmares. They followed the voice's instructions, and found the door. It was a plain wooden door, with a brass knob and a keyhole. The voice told them to take the key from the book of spells, and insert it into the keyhole. It said that once they opened the door, they would enter a realm beyond their wildest dreams. They did as they were told, and opened the door. They stepped through, and gasped. They were in a forest of twisted trees and glowing mushrooms. The sky was purple and filled with stars. The air was sweet and spicy, and filled with strange sounds. They felt a surge of excitement and wonder. They had entered the world of the sorcerer. The voice welcomed them, and told them to explore. It said that each of them would find something that suited their desires, or fears. It said that they could stay as long as they wanted, but they had to return before dawn, or they would be trapped forever. They agreed, and split up. They each had their own adventure. Some of them found love, some of them found power, some of them found knowledge. Some of them faced danger, some of them faced pain, some of them faced madness. But none of them found happiness. They soon realized that the world of the sorcerer was not what it seemed. It was a twisted reflection of their own minds, a trap for their souls. The things they saw and felt were illusions, designed to lure them deeper into the sorcerer's web. They tried to escape, but it was too late. The voice laughed at them and revealed its true identity. It was not the spirit of the mansion's owner. It was the mansion itself. The mansion was alive. And hungry. It had lured them into its mouth, the door to the other world. It had fed on their hopes and fears, their joys and sorrows, their dreams and nightmares. It had devoured their essence. And now it wanted more. It said that it would let them go if they brought it more victims. More unsuspecting teens who would play its game. More souls for its feast. It gave them each a copy of the Book of Spells, and told them to spread the word. It said that if they failed to do so by the next full moon, it would swallow them whole. They had no choice but to obey. They returned to their world, but they were changed. They were hollow shells of their former selves, haunted by what they had seen and done. They were slaves to the mansion. They were its messengers. And they were coming for you.